Everybody, welcome once again to the Wrestling Inc. podcast. I'm Glenn Rubenstein. It is Wednesday, November 22nd, 2017. Today, we are talking about SmackDown, the Survivor Series post-SmackDown. And Raj, who do we have for a guest today?
We got Josh Isenberg with Wrestling Inc. and CSR. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, guys. It's good to be back. I'm excited to talk about some SmackDown with you guys.
Yeah, it's twice in 1 week because Josh was also with us with the post NXT Takeover podcast. So thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So last night the show opened. Actually, Raj, let's talk about the big news that's breaking while we're going to air that you mentioned before.
Sure. Why don't you start that? I'm just updating one thing real quick.
For 2018, there are going to be 14 pay-per-views in the WWE. And 5 are going to be co-branded. Money in the Bank, which we've talked about, was essentially, not the big 4, the big 5 pay-per-views. Money in the Bank is officially elevated to that status now with it being a co-branded pay-per-view for next year. So there will be 5 Raw pay-per-views, 4 SmackDown pay-per-views, and 5 co-branded pay-per-views. Josh, what do you make of this, the idea of co-branding Money in the Bank?
I think everybody thought Money in the Bank was unofficially one of the big 4, surpassing Survivor Series in the past handful of years just because of how important the pay-per-view ends up being for the future. I'm excited for it. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be a Money in the Bank ladder match with multiple superstars from each brand, or they're going to have a briefcase for each show, which that could be a little convoluted. But I like the idea of Money in the Bank, getting the opportunity for Raw and SmackDown to do it, put a couple of championship matches on there. We've seen they do better booking overall when they have 4 or 5 weeks of both shows instead of 2 or 3 weeks between pay-per-views. So I think Money in the Bank with both brands is going to be a big step up for the show, for the pay-per-views all around in 2018.
Yeah. Definitely. And I wonder how they'll do that with the match.
Yeah, my guess would be that they would have guys from both brands in the Money in the Bank match. They've done that before, right? Where they've had Raw.
They had a SmackDown. I think they had a SmackDown ladder match and then a Raw one whenever they had, I believe, like when Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater and those guys were involved. I don't necessarily know if it was superstars from each show. They could have done it for 1 year, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I think now that you have the women's Money in the Bank match, then otherwise, then what do you have 4? Which seems like a lot. So
4 ladder matches.
Yeah, and I think having both brands in the same match kind of makes it a little more interesting, a little less predictable, even though, usually the winner is not that predictable. They usually go someone kind of out of left field. And
I think it would be great if you had, say 4 guys on each show compete. You have 8 men for a ladder match. And then you have the winner of that basically cashing in with either brand. I think that's a big thing that they could do is give that unpredictability. If he's a Raw superstar, he can cash in on a SmackDown World Champion. So I think that gives you more opportunities for guys shifting shows. And we've seen after the draft, a year later, a superstar shakeup. They're not, scared of shifting guys to different shows after 6 or 8 months.
Yeah.
Do you think this year they've waited so long with Carmella that most people have finally forgotten at this point?
A lot of times when they do that, that's about when they make do the cash in. So yeah, I mean, they're not mentioning it, and usually that's a sign.
And I think it's interesting as well. You had the rematch between Natalya and Charlotte on SmackDown Live. I thought that would have been a great opportunity for Carmella to cash in. But then you obviously saw the women debuting from NXT. I don't think it's been too long because I think when you forget about it for a while, it makes it feel a lot better. I mean, look at Dolph Ziggler. Yeah, he carried the briefcase around for such a long time. But people, when they saw finally Dolph Ziggler coming in and cashing in, they're like, oh, about time. Thankfully, Ziggler's cashing in and everybody wanted it, and it was the perfect moment. I just want her to cash in before WrestleMania because I think if you continue to prolong it, for whatever reason, she doesn't have James Ellsworth anymore and she's not being utilized at all, really. So they've got to do something sooner rather than later with Carmella.
Yeah, especially with these call-ups that happen. And we'll talk about that. But, man, the women's division, SmackDown had a problem before of most of the women getting lost in the shuffle by being grouped together. And now even more so. Yeah. Kind of crazy. Crazy week, man. So let's talk about the opening of the show last night. Had Shane O'Mac call down Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, chastised them for their behavior at Survivor Series in the main event there, essentially blaming them, saying it cost SmackDown Live the Survivor Series 5-on-5 match. He was going to fire them. They really lampshaded that hard throughout the night, and Daniel Bryan came out, set them up for a lumberjack match for later in the evening. So, yeah, you know, I know for years, or not years, for months, for the better part of this year, I've been saying, man, more Sammy, more Kevin. How do you guys think it's going, having them be the main storyline? I mean, this got more time than AJ Styles did last night.
I personally thought this was the only good thing on the show.
Yeah.
So I was all for it. I think Kevin and Sammy have been great in this role. I think when Shane was telling Daniel, oh, so you're going to fire him afterwards, it really telegraphed that they weren't, you know? But I think Owens and Sammy are tremendous in this role. So I dug it.
I agree as well with you, Raj. I think Sammy and Kevin. Sammy is such a cocky, unlikable guy now. Whenever he was so much liked by everybody, and all he's doing is dancing around like a fool. So he's really just embracing the fact that he is this over-the-top, cheesy but arrogant, heel. And that's perfect because Kevin Owens isn't that. He's the complete opposite of Sami Zayn. He walks down straight to the ring, looks like he's going to fight somebody. But that's what they do, and I like that a lot. I thought this was the best part and the only really interesting part of a SmackDown show that didn't have Bobby Roode, Shinsuke Nakamura, Dolph Ziggler, AJ Styles, Jinder Mahal in matches. They really focused on the tag team division a little bit here with the Bludgeon Brothers and stuff like that. But I think Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn could potentially get in the tag team division. I think that they would give more credibility to it. I want to see what their overall game plan is because Kevin Owens already had that big payoff match you thought with Shane McMahon. So who's next for him to face?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, AJ, right? I mean, this Randy Orton thing. Right?
They've done AJ to death. It looks like Orton. I mean, Orton's facing him next week. They're booked on live events.
Ticket to nowhere. A feud with Randy Orton.
I mean, if Owens comes out on top, at least it gives him a little something that he's beating a top guy. But Orton's just been so stale for a while that I'm not excited about that feud at all.
Yeah, I think with that feud as well, you have Randy Orton, who's a great in-ring performer. But you're right, Raj. His gimmick, his character has been so stale. Even when they tried to do too much with the House of Horrors match earlier this year and having him, and having him feud with Bray Wyatt, they tried to do more with him. And I mean, lighting the outhouse or whatever it was on fire was probably the coolest thing that Randy Orton has done, but that's saying
coolest thing in years.
Yeah, but at the same time, does a victory against Randy Orton really mean anything for anybody anymore?
Right, and yeah, I mean, with that Bray Wyatt feud, I mean, it was kind of like really high ups and really high downs because I thought when Orton was in the Wyatt family, it was the most interesting he had been in years. But then the payoff to that with the House of Horrors was some of the worst stuff I've ever seen him in. So
it was bad.
Yeah. But yeah, he's just kind of there. Like you forget about him until they mention his name. That's like last night when they're like, I sent Randy Orton home. I was like, oh yeah, Randy Orton.
Sent Randy Orton home.
He was so mad he couldn't be in the building. I mean, he was going to
Randy Orton showed up and he cared so much, too much perhaps.
Yeah.
Had to get him out of the building. Oh man.
By the way, I'm trying a different camera today, and so I don't know if the lighting's any better. If it's worse, let me know and I'll just switch it over.
That's fun. It's fun. Right. So first match of the night, Jey Uso versus Shelton Benjamin. The feud continues.
It's creative on, do they have Thanksgiving week off? Because that seems very un-WWE-ish, Because I thought this show was, oh man, I thought it was, first of all, they've been doing this forever. We're feuding tag teams. You have feuding tag teams in a singles match. And, this was predictable as hell. But other than that, I mean, it was fine for what it was. I mean, the match itself was good, but.
Did either of you notice that it seemed like Shelton Benjamin and Chad Gable during the match played more of the heels?
Oh
yeah, you had Gable on the outside interfere for Benjamin. Obviously, the fans are loving what the Usos are doing because they recreated themselves outside of that face paint that carried them so long in WWE. But now you have Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin. Benjamin's not completely over. Gable's not completely over. I wouldn't be surprised if they just let those guys be more of heels. And and it seems like Benjamin's just lost a step since returning. He doesn't seem as explosive. He doesn't seem as exciting in the ring than when we remember him. It could be age. It could be him adding on an additional 15, 20 pounds of muscle. I like the idea of Gable and Benjamin, but it's just not clicking for me right now.
I think they are heels. I think Gable and Benjamin kind of are officially heels. Like a couple of weeks ago when they they started doing the the backstage stuff where they're being all cocky, I think was kind of their heel turn. But I think they're a lot better that way, especially Gable. Benjamin's just kind of there. I just felt like him being put into this tag team right off the bat just did him no favors. And
it was absurd how it was sort of like, Jason Jordan's gone, here's your new partner.
Yeah.
No, I think their heel turn was complete when they went to do the handshake, then the psych with the hair move. I mean, come on, guys. We all know since the 80s, if you do that, you're an asshole.
Yeah. But I think the thing with Benjamin and Gable is, I'm still going to give them an opportunity to win me over. But neither of them are great on the mic. It really is Benjamin and Haas again, with both guys that just kind of struggle connecting with the crowd, whether it's face or heel. So I wonder if the heel gimmick's actually going to work, because I don't know if they're going to be able to connect. And I mean, you can only do so much in saying, oh, we're in Houston, Texas, you guys suck, you can't win. You can only say the hometown heat for so much and give that to so many heels to get that instant reaction.
Yeah. So Benjamin won that with pay dirt to pin Jey Uso last night. And the feud continues. Oh, man, the Usos are so good right now. I just want to see them in. I mean, God, could you imagine the Usos versus Kevin and Sammy, as a feud? I mean, that would be really electric, with how all of them are on the mic and whatnot. And I think that's the problem is I feel like one side is carrying all of these feuds that they have going on right now. They don't have a lot of great equally matched guys. So let's talk backstage. Owens and Zayn were talking to Baron Corbin. It's a cute little vignette. They talked to Bobby Roode, trying to get his help. And
they have sucked the charisma out of Bobby Roode. He's just another guy now.
Wasn't it that way in NXT also, though? I mean, the fact he was a heel, it wasn't that he was massively charismatic and likable. It was that he played the heel role really, really well. Yeah,
it fit him. Like he was more, his style was more accustomed to a heel. And in a face, he just seems lost.
And I think the thing with Bobby Roode in NXT is he didn't have the most charisma in the entire world, but when he comes out and says, I wear custom-made suits, I wear expensive shoes, I mean, this is stuff that Ric Flair said in the 80s, but it sounds not better than Ric Flair, but it kind of is up to date. It's up to date when you see a guy like Bobby Roode who carried and possessed himself like he was head and shoulders above anybody else. But you're right, now in SmackDown, on that roster, he kind of just comes off as another guy, a guy in a robe. He kind of comes off as Charlotte Flair's, nephew or not nephew, her uncle, but, it doesn't connect.
Yeah.
SmackDown's got some problems, and I think tonight just highlighted it in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So backstage, Naomi was getting her makeup done when, lo and behold, attacked by Ruby Riot, who brought along Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan with her. Talk about things I didn't see coming. Josh, what do you think of this call up to bring SmackDown on the same level? I mean, to give parity to what happened with Raw Monday night with Paige and her crew.
I might be in the minority here by saying I actually didn't mind this, and I'll tell you why I didn't mind it, because in NXT, you have all of these people that are awaiting to be called up that the fans think are established and they're ready to go on Raw and SmackDown. And as we've seen over the past year and a half, a lot of those people don't pan out. Whether it's tag teams like the Ascension, whether it's the Vaudevillains, I mean, the list goes on of really good talents that got over in NXT. Whenever you saw Ruby Riot, I mean, even Monday nights, but even when you saw Ruby Riot, Liv Morgan, and Sarah Logan, they really didn't get a huge push in NXT, so they're still kind of fresh to the WWE universe. So I think that gives Vince McMahon and the head writers on SmackDown an opportunity to use these women how they see fit, not how they were in NXT. So that transition could be a little bit easier for them. The fact that they mocked the exact storyline that Raw did, they could have done something else that was a little bit better. But maybe the grand scheme of things is these NXT talents are coming up together. They're just put on separate shows. They're trying to overtake the entire women's division on both shows.
I thought it was – I agree with you, Josh, about the call-ups. I think, first of all, I think if they were doing so many singles women's feuds that they were running out, that they needed to call-ups, that would be one thing. But they haven't really been doing that. They just clump them all together every week. So it'll be interesting to see if they start breaking away from that pattern. But I thought it makes SmackDown look so much like the B show by copying the exact same angle as Raw, but without the star power of Paige.
Yeah.
And you have a lesser version of what you did on Raw. And I mean, it's the exact same thing. You got the the MMA girl, you know, with Sarah Logan, and the goth girl with, you know, Ruby Riot, and then the blonde with Liv Morgan. So it was like the exact copy of what they did on Raw, but a lesser version of it. And I think it just, you know, they're going out of their way, it feels like at times, to make SmackDown look like the inferior brand. And they killed the brand split last time. You know, after a while of them doing that, that's what led to them, you know, stopping doing the separate live events, and then eventually having them all on the same show. And they're not learning by their mistakes. You got to make them both strong, even if one gets lower ratings than the other. Once you start making one the weaker brand, fans are gonna perceive it that way, not want to spend money on it.
Would you have booked somebody else instead of Ruby Riot for the SmackDown Invasion to give that star power, or somebody else aside from Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan?
No, just do something completely different.
Okay.
You know, you have Ruby Riot wrestle a match, and you have Liv Morgan introduced backstage, and maybe a promo for Sarah Logan. You know, like, just mix it up. Just don't do exactly the same thing you did on Raw. Yeah,
exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have Daniel Bryan just talking to all three, just, you know, them saying, like, you know, with all these NXT stars, we'd like to get a shot, and then he books them in separate matches. There's so many different ways you could do it, instead of just copying what they did on Raw. But I'm all, like I said, I'm all for them calling them up. I just didn't like the way that they were presented. And exact same angle, except they, you know, the backstage segment came first as opposed to interfering in the match. Whereas on Raw, they interfered in the match first and then did the backstage attack.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, when's the last time with the NXT call up that they did it like this, where no champion, I mean, you know, not someone that was a champion, not someone that was in the main event of the division, or even really the secondary storylines of the division.
Probably Apollo Crews and Baron Corbin, right? I mean, they had mid-card matches in NXT. And you saw what happened with Apollo Crews. Obviously, he's all talent, no charisma, as I think Vince McMahon put it. But that's the only time that I can remember. But I actually like that, though, because whenever you have these people succeed so much at NXT, their roof might be a little limited. They might not be able to reach their fullest potential because they were so over in NXT. It's hard to be over consistently in Little Rock, Arkansas, in Denver, Colorado, and all across the country each week, compared to Full Sail University for a month or 2 months, and then one big city, you know, once every 3 months.
Well, but the difference is, with the exception of Ruby, have any of these women between Raw and SmackDown ever had a match even on a takeover?
No.
Sarah Logan was in the Mae Young Classic. Which of these women were in the Mae Young Classic? I know Sarah Logan was. Was Ruby Riot?
Ruby Riot was not. Sarah Logan was. I also believe that losing her name. The MMA chick.
Sonya Deville.
Sonya Deville. I think she was in there as well. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, the only thing with Sarah Logan is she's an independent wrestler for about 6 years, and getting called into NXT. I saw her being fast tracked. She seemed like the type of person that wouldn't be there for a while. I mean, think about it like this. It's a weird comparison, but we didn't see Braun Strowman in NXT, really. And he was there, and he immediately got called up, and he was in no matches. So I hold out hope that they're able to get something out of these women, because they are fresh to 75-80% of the audience.
Oh,
I agree with you 100%. Like, the same thing with AJ Styles. By having him in the Royal Rumble as opposed to coming through NXT, it's a surprise, it's a shock. But you got to have a plan. Like, when they just brought Apollo Crews, and then within a couple of weeks they're doing nothing with him, you know, then it kind of ruins the whole point of it. But I mean, I'm totally for them not having someone in NXT forever, just to, you know, keep it fresh. But again, have a plan like they did with Braun. You know, putting him in the Wyatt, building him up slow, and they got a superstar out of it.
We'll see what happens, man. I'm just worried these three women are going to get lost in the shuffle more. I mean, on Raw, you know, with Paige is going to be a main women's storyline. It could very well be Paige, Alexa, and Asuka that carry the Raw women's division going forward. I think Bayley and Sasha might get lost in the shuffle. On SmackDown, I mean, who knows, man? We were talking about they book these women like they're the Spice Girls. They're always together. You know, they're a group. And now we got three more. Liv Morgan, man. I think Liv Morgan has a ton of talent in the ring. I think her promos are okay. Her gimmick is Carmella 2.0.
Was it just me, or did she look a lot like Mandy Rose last night?
She looks a ton like Mandy Rose now. even more so. She's changed her makeup a little bit, but
a couple of people pointing out in the chat that Sonya was not in the Mae Young Classic.
Oh, I thought she was. Oh, Shayna Baszler was.
Shayna Baszler,
Baszler, yeah, she's the other MMA girl. But
yeah, that's the thing. We were talking about this.
She's a legit MMA girl. I mean, I'm not. Sonya's done some amateur fights, but you know, Shayna Baszler was in the UFC.
Yeah.
With Mae Young, I mean, with these tournaments, they build up everyone as such a character and give them their own personality, and they're different. And that's what I think was the only thing disappointing. It's no discredit to these women. It's just that if I was booking SmackDown and I wanted to do something different, I'd look at the Mae Young and say, okay, who are the big characters? Who's someone that's a different personality? Who's someone that's going to shake it up? And I don't know that this is going to do that. But the attack, Becky sold like crazy last night backstage on that beatdown.
Yeah, some of the people I think in the Mae Young Classic that I might have been a little surprised that I could have taken a spot maybe for Sarah Logan or even Liv Morgan. I mean, Mercedes Martinez, she was the one that had, in my opinion, the most heel skills in that. And I mean, you've seen her in NXT a little bit. She faced, I think, Ember Moon last week. Just a couple of backstage promos. She has that natural ability. She's been around forever in the indie scene. She's finally signed to WWE. Mercedes Martinez has the look where she just looks like she can kick your butt. You know, she looks like the type of woman that will go after anybody and knock her down, tatted up, probably about 5'10". She's a tall girl. Aside from her, though, a lot of the NXT or the Mae Young Classic women were kind of just ordinary, you know?
Yeah. Russell Murray pointing out the women's rumble, and that's kind of what I thought when I saw it last night, bringing up 6 women. That they're probably going to do a women's Royal Rumble and
hashtag women's rumble. They'll probably start it in 2 or 3 weeks.
And instead of having NXT talent, just bring NXT talent up. But I totally see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, you know, you were mentioning the Mae Young Classic. There's a couple others like Jazzy. What's her name? Jazzy Gabert.
Jazzy Gabert, yeah.
She's not that great in the ring, but she's got the look, and you know, she's different. So she's someone I could see them using as well. And then, you know, Tessa Blanchard, I'm still surprised.
Why haven't they signed Tessa Blanchard? I don't get that.
I don't get it. I think they might have.
Well, even Rachel Ellering too.
Recently.
I mean, has that bloodline too. It's surprising that they haven't, you know, really invested a lot of money or time into them yet. Yeah.
And I think, you know, in NXT, you got a lot of women that are ready. Peyton Royce, I'm surprised they haven't called her up, you know, with
everyone
all these call-ups.
was predicting that last night. Peyton and Billy, people thought that was going to be the interference.
Yeah. So maybe they got plans. I guess they need, you know, Ember Moon needs a feud, and her and Peyton, I can see that. I can see that being good. So maybe that's why. Yeah.
Women's Rumble. It'll happen in January. Last night, another debut. Finally, it happened in the ring. The Hype Bros took on the Bludgeon Brothers.
It's like they took Kane's outfit and just kind of rearranged it a little bit.
Yeah.
Josh, how you feeling about the Bludgeon Brothers?
Okay, they're okay. Their entrance looked like it could be interesting. They could add some things to it. I don't think that's all we're going to get each week. I've always been a huge fan of Luke Harper, not a huge fan of Eric Rowan. And that's kind of where my split is on a 50-50 feel about these guys. Harper's too talented to not be consistently used on SmackDown. I mean, he's one of the most fluent big men that I've seen in quite some time in the ring. You know, he's 265 pounds. He's actually shredded a bunch of weight from his beginnings in the Wyatt family. He looks great. I'm interested to see what their plan is for this, because I feel like they could be a 2-3 month gimmick where they completely roll over tag teams and then they put over main event guys. Maybe they put over somehow an Owens and Zayn, or, you know, they kind of lose all of their steam. I'm not sold on them yet. I don't think that a long-term plan is in place for these guys.
And we've seen this tag team for years. Yeah. It's not like they're pulling the wool over people's eyes and people are thinking it's new. You just changed their outfit and got a different name, but they look exactly the same other than that. You know, like Luke Harper, like we've been talking about this forever. He's too talented for them to just waste him. And, you know, I just think, you know, when we were talking about the NXT call-ups, what if they had a storyline where he was dating like Ruby Riot or Liv Morgan? Or, yeah, let's say Liv Morgan. And she, you know, has him change and shave the beard and start getting all preppy. And he's like, you know, they could do something.
Yeah.
You know, Raj, the WWE is hiring a writer right now.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's why he's pulling his cards out right now.
Hell no. I would never want that job.
Every fan should submit to that job, and just when you're pitched, don't even put a resume. Just put, I've been watching wrestling for years. Here are my story ideas.
Yeah. You come up with all these great story ideas, and Vince just goes, nah. Because that's what, you know, you hear about fans complaining about creative a lot, and then you just hear about how many cool ideas are just turned away, and they just end up sticking with the same old, same old. And that's Vince.
Yep. I don't even think Vince knows what it all means. I think he just...
Yeah, I think he's out of touch creatively. He's obviously a great businessman. WWE's on fire as a business. But creatively, I mean, he seems out of touch. I don't know.
Yeah. Hashtag under siege. you repeat it enough and it becomes a thing.
The one time a year when Raw and SmackDown are in head-to-head competition.
I've heard that probably 300 times in that last month that we.
I'm surprised last night. I'm surprised last night that I was waiting for it because they were talking about Survivor Series. I was like, just come on, get the line in, guys.
Last Sunday, the only time Raw and SmackDown are in head-to-head competition.
Oh my God. So yeah, the Bludgeon Brothers. I like their finisher. I thought that was kind of cool. But those bodysuits. I mean, they look like they're old timey acrobats.
Yeah, so I was mentioning a couple weeks ago, I'm like, with the promos, I was like, is this supposed to be campy? Like they're going to be kind of a comedy deal, but I mean, they did what you're supposed to do with, I guess, not a debuting tag team, but a re-debuting tag team, but it just comes across as too hokey.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people kind of compared it to the Ascension. They came out looking like they're from another planet or another world, and they didn't necessarily have the face paint, but it was too hokey. You're right; it was too much. When all they could have really done is just come out with, they didn't have to do this ridiculous looking outfit. I don't think that they're going to have this outfit for weeks and weeks. I think somebody's going to be smart and wise up and say, okay, let's take this corny part out, let's take this corny part out, and kind of put it together. So I think it's still a work in progress. The name doesn't roll off your tongue.
Oh, no.
Like the Bludgeon Brothers. Like it's just, that's a 1990s, even a 1980s tag team name. Like the Legion of Doom, the Bludgeon Brothers, Demolition. Like that doesn't really work anymore.
And I have to say, I give them credit. I predicted for weeks they were going to spell it BLOOD, Bludgeon, and they did it. So
the Road Warriors is still a cool name.
Well,
but would it get over now? Is what I'm saying. Like.
Yeah, well, with the scripted promos that they get, they're definitely not.
That's true.
Oh man, I mean, and the outfits, I guess, Eric Rowan was wearing a potato sack before, so I mean, this is maybe a step up.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, Luke Harper doesn't look like a janitor anymore, so
that's true. We're complaining about that's
that would have been actually an awesome gimmick for Harper. Like he just out there mopping, like
he's always just plumbing the toilet.
Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, the Bludgeon Brothers won. The poor Hype Bros. They can't even turn on each other and get a singles feud out of this. It's just that's gotta be weird. They're just sort of stuck in this role with no momentum. I mean, Mojo won the armbar this year.
He won the what?
The armbar.
The Andre.
Oh, Andre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I said it then, and people were like, "We'll give it a chance," but that was just done as to get ESPN play for Gronk.
Yeah,
he was giving tours backstage to kids, man. I mean, he was their guy potentially. Yeah.
It's really strange though when you look at it. I mean, you had Baron Corbin win the Andre Battle Royal. You had Mojo Rawley. At least Baron got something out of it. Mojo got nothing. I mean, he was not seen on TV for weeks, for maybe up to 2 months after that, or a couple of weeks after that. So I mean, the Hype Bros are just, again, they're a very cheesy, hyped up group of guys that they put together as a tag team because it kind of worked in NXT for a little bit. But I never saw a future for these guys. I feel bad for Ryder. I think people still genuinely like Zack Ryder,
sure.
But at the same time, I don't think either of these guys. I'll be honest with you, if he wasn't connected to Rob Gronkowski and he didn't have those ties that WWE always loves, I don't know if Rawley would have a job in WWE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's crazy. So we had AJ come out and talk about what's next. We talked about this Monday, but they made it official that the rematch did not happen this week between Jinder and AJ, saving that for Clash of the Champions. Next week, we're getting AJ versus the Singh brothers in a 2-on-1 handicap match. Oh, why do they drag these things out that were never that exciting to begin with? I mean, when you have a feud that is pure filler, why does it need to go for so long? I mean, I don't know. I mean, What do you think, Josh? I mean, is this doing anything for you? This dragging out of Jinder being in the main event picture against someone like AJ?
It doesn't, Glenn, and I think that I'm not even surprised about it because with the holidays, WWE tends to just throw things to the wall, and they kind of ramp themselves up for Royal Rumble. You'll get sometimes at the Royal Rumble some interesting World Championship matches that you think, wow, these are kind of out of the blue. But putting these guys together at Clash of Champions, you have to have a championship match there somehow. I hate the involvement of the Singh brothers each week because, I mean, Styles just throws those guys around. They just threw them around on SmackDown. So why would we care if the Singh brothers beat AJ Styles? It doesn't make sense to me. It's a bigger picture, obviously. I think Jinder's going to fall after Clash of Champions down the ladder. He's going to be a mid-card guy at best. I think this is it for Mahal. Not to his discredit. I think he's done everything he could. And he had the best he could. Yeah, the best he could for what they were giving him. But at the same time, like you said earlier, he was in a feud with Randy Orton for a while, and we know those feuds aren't about character development. They're basically just about Randy Orton having a legacy and people trying to break that legacy.
Yeah, I think I mean, they needed to blow off this feud, and I don't know what else they could put for Clash of Champions that wouldn't feel rushed for AJ. So it's something and I kind of agree. I think that's kind of the end at the top for Jinder for now. And I've been saying it for a while. Get him some steam on the undercard. Put him in feuds with guys that can go and have him get better in the ring. And then, if you still want to push him down the road, maybe you could. I don't think it's necessarily the end for good because you do see people improve and you do see injuries and stuff where they're forced to, make rush decisions and pull someone up. But, yeah, I guess the original plan was for Jinder and Cena at WrestleMania, so I'm wondering if they're going to go with AJ and Cena.
Again, yeah.
I think that's way better. I mean, AJ and Cena, torn it up in the past. Their match at the Royal Rumble, that was this year, right? Man, that feels like a long time ago.
The Royal Rumble this year.
It was one of the best matches of the year.
Wouldn't you not be surprised, though, if they put AJ Styles versus heel Randy Orton trying to give Orton another opportunity to main event in a championship match? Like, that wouldn't surprise me, though, because we haven't really seen AJ and Orton.
Yeah, they did it on SmackDown once.
Yeah.
Or twice.
Not like a lengthy feud that there's a draw or there's a payout and they draw it out for 3 months. Yeah,
for sure. But the one thing I was going to say is their matches on SmackDown I thought were totally bland. Like I thought AJ's match with Jinder was better than this matches with Orton.
I agree.
Yeah, Orton's just so blank. So it's just really disappointing because I think they could give him something to do, but it's just not happening.
It's also weird with AJ that sometimes the people you assume he's going to have great matches with, he doesn't necessarily have them. Like Kevin Owens, his feud with Kevin Owens was, their matches were just there. They didn't really have that chemistry. They didn't vibe. Whereas, AJ's having these killer matches with Roman Reigns and John Cena and Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
So,
and it took AJ 3 matches really to make it work to a level that was, I would say, above average in their SummerSlam match.
Right.
Their first match at Battleground had that interesting pinfall that was just really strange. But you're right, Raj. It's surprising to me because I think everybody can agree that AJ Styles is probably one of the best performers in the world. But at the same time, you think, oh, wow, this amazing performer in Styles should be having 5-star matches with Kevin Owens and with Sami Zayn and Randy Orton because these guys are so fluent in the ring and AJ Styles can make anybody look good, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. Yeah. And I wonder why that is. I don't know that disconnect.
Do you think after last night's promo, they're going to do AJ versus Brock again at the Rumble?
I don't know. I don't know if you want to, because they're not going to beat Brock, obviously.
Yeah.
So do you want to beat AJ twice? But who else do they got for Brock at the Rumble? I guess they could do, I mean, if they do Samoa Joe or Braun, they're just beating those guys again. Yeah. You could do like Seth Rollins to kind of build to Roman Reigns at Mania. Yeah, I just don't know who you put in there because it's clear. Yeah, obviously they're not doing Finn. Yeah. So, and Finn has a natural storyline, and it's not like the Brock match is the draw. No. It's the Rumble itself. So I remember in the past they had like Brock versus Bob Holly at the Royal Rumble. Like they would just have throwaway WWE Championship matches because the draw is the Rumble. So I could see them if they're building
which it seems like they are if they're building to Roman versus Brock. I could see that they do Brock versus Seth at 1, Brock versus Dean at the next Raw pay-per-view. They both lose, and then Roman comes in, and the one man who could take down Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I could also see, I mean, they've done it before where Brock Lesnar gets thrown into a triple threat match. They did the Cena, Seth Rollins, and Brock Lesnar triple threat match at Royal Rumble a few years ago. I wouldn't be surprised if they threw Seth and Dean together in a triple threat match against Brock Lesnar. I'm not sure how creatively you would script that, like how those guys would get the opportunities to do that. But they can come up with something. I like Brock Lesnar in triple threat matches a lot. Because we know what Brock Lesnar is going to do. We know Brock Lesnar can do more than suplexes, but he doesn't need to do more than suplexes. So a triple threat match gives you the opportunity to see other guys really make their moves work in the ring against Brock Lesnar. And realistically speaking, all of us look at guys in WWE and say, yeah, realistically, he can't beat Brock Lesnar. So why not try 2 guys? Yeah,
that's a good idea. And plus, having Seth and Dean going after each other in the match also makes sense because it's for the title. Yep. So, obviously it would start off with them beating the crap out of Brock, but I like that idea.
Man, why can't the Shield get along and stay together?
Yeah, I hope Brock re-signs because it's a lot of stock they're putting in Brock for one match, to lose one match, I'd like to see more guys get the rub off, from him. And having it just be Roman Reigns, I don't think it's going to do much. Take Reigns much higher, whereas it could for someone like an AJ or countless other guys, or Braun.
Yeah. Oh man, so Charlotte and Natalya got their rematch last night. Of course, it was interfered by Ruby Riot, Liv Morgan, and Sarah Logan. So the Charlotte and Natalya feud lives on.
This thing never ends. It is the never-ending women's feud from NXT all the way up. I have zero interest in Natalya. I think she is a good performer in the ring. She doesn't garner a crowd reaction like you want for a heel. Every time I see her on there, and it's not she's a poor performer. There's just something about her when she comes out and I see her face Charlotte, or even times when I see her face Naomi, she doesn't draw. Like she's a good wrestler, and that's pretty much it. Can you name like a great promo or a great storyline with Natalya? I don't ever see one.
And I think she's miscast. I think she's a natural babyface. It comes across that she's the nicest person. When she's doing these heel promos, it seems like a nice person playing wrestler. But she's so good in the ring. I just think she should be a babyface. And I think you could come up with a good storyline for her. I mean, I think almost all the women you could say you can't really name a really good storyline because they don't really come up with great storylines for them. I mean, Charlotte and, Sasha, I wouldn't say they had a great storyline. They just wrestled each other forever. Yeah. So, but yeah, I agree. This feud does nothing. I mean, Natalya won the Divas title for, I mean, not Divas title, sorry, the SmackDown Women's title for Total Divas. And that's the story. It was a storyline on Total Divas. So I guess now that, Total Divas is that season wrapped up, they're airing it now. They don't need to have the title on her, but I don't know. I agree that feud does nothing, but I guess who do they go with?
I still think you could do a Becky and Charlotte feud.
Yeah.
I think that's something that you need.
I would say that for Mania because that's the best one I think they have.
Well, do you think
go with Naomi for now because she was the last title holder, and then move on to Becky?
Well, you don't think they have something with like Rousey and the Four Horsewomen with Charlotte?
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
We'll see, man. I would love for them to do something with Becky. I think the problem with Charlotte, they've built Charlotte so much, and now to have her as champ, it's just I feel like that goes nowhere because she's just going to hold on to that belt forever.
I think you can do it right. I like that. I like the idea of that because otherwise it just keeps, it's hot potato with the title with the women.
But isn't that the reason why? I mean, wrestling, when it goes through its valleys as opposed to the peaks, I mean, I remember as a kid when Hogan had the belt forever and it was the idea that, well, Hogan's not going to lose. It's like it just kind of becomes unexciting at that point. I mean, it's the same thing with Brock. That's the problem with the Brock.
But that's what you just mentioned. That's always when wrestling's the hottest, is when you got these guys at top. Hogan, you know, through his entire run, wrestling was super hot, and as soon as he lost, it kind of started going downhill. The Attitude Era was Steve Austin on top, and you know, and The Rock and Triple H. And then once those guys kind of went down, you know, you had Cena who would lose a lot. It's not as interesting. I think people, it means something when those guys on top finally, you know, meet these obstacles or finally lose. And Brock, you know, when he does lose, it's going to be a big deal. And it was a big deal when he lost to Goldberg. That thing got, you know, a ton of publicity, and it got media articles, and, you know, over a fictional wrestling match. Undertaker, you know.
But you know what was weird about the Brock thing, though, with Goldberg is that was so unearned. I mean, it was surprising because it happened, and it was like, what in the hell are we watching here?
You know, you don't need to earn. It's wrestling. You know, if it fits the storyline, you know, Goldberg coming back, that spiked in interest last year. Ratings were dipping hard, and then Goldberg came back, and it jumped up like 15-20%.
And I get that, but think about the match that Brock had with Braun, and it was like, oh my God, Braun's doing this. Think about the match Brock had with Samoa Joe, where it was like, wow, this is really an intense match for Brock Lesnar. Think about even with AJ, where it was AJ was getting in the offense, and how brutal it was with going in there. If you would have had a victory at the end of that scenario, it would have been, I think it would have meant something more, where Goldberg just came out, did this, you know, spear, and it was over in 3 minutes against Brock. That just felt, I don't know, cheap, thin, just kind of not.
No, I know what you mean. There wasn't a lot of depth to it. I understand what you're trying to say there. I still, and even though it's been said that it was only supposed to be a one-off and they didn't have any further plans, I don't know why you booked that match if you didn't have a slight inclination that Goldberg was going to stay past that night. Because I don't think you do the 90-second squash on Brock Lesnar, who's not your champion, but who's been one of the most dominant superstars in WWE for such a long time, that you have a 51-year-old Goldberg come in and just squash him. He already got the ratings. People already bought the pay-per-view, so it wasn't like they were doing it for the buys. They already bought it. They were already watching it. So I still think that there was a small inclination, whether it was Vince or Triple H, that look at our ratings since Goldberg's come back. They've spiked. We can get him to continue with a couple of more matches, and then you saw, obviously, the Royal Rumble, and then you saw Fastlane, and then WrestleMania. You're right, though, Raj. A spike of 10, 15% or 20%, whatever the exact numbers were, that's enough for them to say, well, let's roll with this guy as much as we can. Let's get as much more we can out of him, because they didn't get much out of him the first WWE run.
No, and you don't bring back Goldberg just to, treat them like you're doing Matt Hardy right now. So it's a business decision. But Josh, really quick to your point. Originally, the plan was for a one-off, and that Lesnar was going to win at Survivor Series. And then once they agreed to more appearances and came up with the contract, that which happened before Survivor Series. That's when they went with the decision to have Goldberg beat him quick and do the rematch at Mania. But I think, I think that Goldberg, to your point, Glenn, with Brock losing, I mean, I think he should lose more after Mania. Not all the time, but where it makes sense to people that you're building. And, but I still think it wouldn't mean anything if he had been losing all the time up until this point, or losing often. So.
Yeah, no, it does mean something. I mean, when they do lose eventually, of course. But then you have to put the toothpaste back in the tube, as it were, and make it compelling. So I think for Brock, if Brock loses to Roman at Mania, Brock going away for a while isn't the worst thing, because then when he comes back, he just gets reasserts his dominance, and I think he's going to be back at that level, which is kind of how they booked him. I mean, with how infrequently he appears, he never has the stigma of a loser, even when he loses.
Yeah, and I mean, even kind of taking this back to the main point of Charlotte being above everybody else, I mean, but she's lost multiple times. She's lost the championship after 3-4 weeks. So as much as everybody knows that Charlotte Flair is the best women's performer that they have, it wouldn't be surprising to me if she dropped the title next month. If Carmella cashes in December, then you maybe get a Carmella-Charlotte feud to take you into January and February. There's a lot of opportunities for Charlotte still on SmackDown Live. And it just, again, Natalya, I think you have to just completely end that and move on, move towards a Becky Lynch, move towards a Naomi. You have to do something else besides Natalya and Charlotte. It's so repetitive right now.
Yeah, and when we're done with the SmackDown review, remind me to talk about The Miz taking time off and the new Marine movie, which was just announced this morning, with also starring Shawn Michaels and Becky Lynch. So Becky is going to be off of TV too.
Okay.
For a bit.
I love the Marine series. I have reason to love it more.
You're the one.
You're the one.
You're the one they keep making these movies for.
Marine 3, or was it 4? One of them was like kind of a solid. Marine 3 was kind of a solid B action movie. Marine 4 was Marine 5 is just silly.
You and the tens of fans. Okay.
Yeah. But that's.
I will say this: I didn't think the first 12 rounds was bad. They had sent me a screener for that, and I didn't think that one was bad.
Well, the problem with that movie, it's not. I mean, Aidan Gillen from Game of Thrones and The Wire, great villain. That was a get for them in hindsight. But the problem was that you're trying to do a Die Hard movie, and then you have John Cena at his biggest, walking around looking sort of clunky, just out of place compared to all these other people. You just don't buy it that he's like an everyman cop who has to face off against a terrorist.
I checked out of WWE Network movies or WWE movies, studio movies after The Chaperone. So
you saw The Chaperone?
That was. I want to say no. I want to say no, but
I remember I watched that Blade movie because Triple H was in it.
Yeah.
And
Blade 3? I love Blade 3.
Yeah, I don't know. When you have wrestlers in non-WWE movies, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's weird. Triple H has had quite a career. It's strange when you see the flashbacks. Even when I was watching Wrestling with Shadows again 2 weeks ago for the anniversary. And yeah, it's just back with the long hair. I mean, he seems like such a different person now, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to believe that he did so much acting.
I wouldn't say so much.
So, well, he had, those opportunities. So let's talk about the main event last night, which was the handicap lumberjack match, the New Day versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Most of the roster at ringside. We saw Mike Kanellis. We saw the Colognes were there. The Shining Stars shine on, folks. They were ringside for this, and it was a chance for the roster to get some beatdowns on Sami and Kevin. The match happened. Who came to their rescue? Kind of, sort of, at the end of Rusev and Aiden English after that backstage segment. Speaking of which, did you guys notice that when they were talking backstage to Rusev and Aiden English, that Sami said to Aiden about the New Day, they think you're a terrorist? To Aiden English.
I thought they said terrible singer.
That's what I thought it was too, but I noticed online people also heard terrorist.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't pick that up. I heard the terrible singer thing. Wow, Aiden English? Wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Sami probably was meant to be terrible singer, so either he flubbed it or a lot of people, misheard it.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's an interesting angle.
Yeah, I didn't pick up. I figured it was terrible something, but I couldn't tell what he said.
Yeah. So maybe a little faction now with Rusev and Aiden teaming up with Sami and Kevin.
Chris Bricks has it real quick. Chris Bricks has an interesting question in the chat. Remind me to get to that when we're done with this too. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I wouldn't be against the idea of having Rusev and Aiden English help out and aid Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I like Zayn and Owens by themselves, so I don't want to see them each week helping Rusev and English and back and forth. But you got to have somebody. Obviously, you got to have somebody help them out because there's faces and there's heels. Ultimately, though, the main event, I thought, really showcased what SmackDown is trying to do and is trying to, I think, begin to develop stables. Like you said, Glenn, this could be the beginning of something that we're going to see, maybe that they feud with the New Day. And when you look at the tag team division without the New Day, you have the Usos, the Bludgeon Brothers, and then Chad Gable and Benjamin. So you got to have the New Day do something. So why not use them with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, continue that feud more, because I think you can get more out of that.
Yeah. And the match with New Day last night was all right. I mean, it was solid, but they're already running this into the ground. I feel like, this was third time we've seen some face off in this configuration.
I think it's many weeks too. Yeah. I would love to see more of a Big E singles push, not splitting from the New Day, but really focusing on Big E as the singles guy and Woods and Kofi as the tag team. If they want to put them in the tag team division, that might freshen things up. Giving Big E, matches with Kevin Owens, with Sami Zayn, even guys with like Randy Orton, and just freshening up what Big E does, because it'll keep the New Day fresh. And it's amazing that the New Day is still something. I mean, after all the success they've had.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea. I felt like Big E's always kind of had that an it factor to him, that he could be a big single star.
Bring back the 5 count.
Yeah.
But did you think last night? Okay, so they had the lumberjack match. The beatdown happened.
Sammy won with the roll up.
Sammy won. Kevin bolts through the crowd to get out of there. Sammy gets beat up.
Real quick, before you say anything, I want to ask you this: who thought Daniel Bryan was turning heel? Did any of you?
A little bit. There was a piece of me that thought that'd be cool, but then I said, "Oh, if it's cool and it's logical, then no, it's not going to happen."
Because they seemed like they were kind of teasing that a little bit, where Shane's like, "Oh, you're going to fire him," and it was clear Daniel wasn't. And then with the NXT ladies attacking, Daniel's like, I can't tell you why they're here or no comment.
That was weird that he was like, no chastising, no criticism, just like, man, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and they made it seem like there was going to be something with Daniel Bryan at this end, or at least I took it that way.
Well, I think something comes out of Daniel Bryan, maybe in a couple of months. I'm still a believer that there could be a potential Daniel Bryan match at WrestleMania. I'm still going to beat that drum until it's not. Until it doesn't happen. Yeah. So
I was actually surprised when he was talking about the backstage thing that they didn't reference the Nexus attack and him saying, I've been there before, and I understand that sometimes you just get so frustrated you have to, tear it up and assert your place, or something.
They never go back to mentioning the Nexus.
Yeah.
You notice that? Like with none of those guys.
Yeah.
But with Randy Orton, I mean, last night they showed the clips of Ric Flair. I mean, so it's like Evolution, Legend Killer. Like they'll talk about like they selectively pick out things from their continuity and history. I thought the strangest thing, and I actually think the last night that this was punishment for whatever supposedly happened on the European tour, but actually having Kevin Owens get down on his knees and beg to not be fired.
I could see Owens having that idea to get down and beg. I thought that was funny.
Isn't that what Vince McMahon thinks is like the ultimate emasculation?
Probably, yeah.
I mean, I like that idea though. I like the idea of Kevin Owens being humble and being and like I think that could have been something that he thought of, or one of the writers were like, you know what, let's do this. And he's like, you know what, that's actually pretty funny, because he knows that that's going to troll the internet fans and people are going to think that. So maybe mission was accomplished, because you're not the only person that has said that, for sure.
Yeah, it was weird. So an odd SmackDown, I feel like a lot of weeks it's either average or odd, occasionally really good. But Clash of the Champions coming up in a couple weeks, Starrcade coming up this weekend after the Thanksgiving holiday, and
Wrestling Inc.'s Chris Calicut will be going to that and covering it for the site, posting photos on Twitter, and he'll have a report on the site right after.
Awesome.
Yeah, so this is where SmackDown's at, folks. Strap in.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
It's fallen greatly.
Yeah.
So, Raj, what else is up in the world of wrestling?
All right, so Chris had an interesting question. Who in WWE or NXT, or just wrestling in general, is under 32 that could realistically be the face of the company? Dean Ambrose is 31, but face of the company, I don't see it.
Tried it.
They did, but they didn't necessarily book him the best either. He would need to like change his look and stuff up a little bit, I think.
That's a good question, though. Wow. I mean, all the guys that you could see carrying the show are over 33, 34 years old.
There's huge potential in people. I think Patrick Clark has huge potential to be a top star.
I think he could be a top star. As far as face of the company, I almost think he'd have to drop the gimmick a little to.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because that's not a top baby face.
He's 22 though. Think about 5 years from now where we could be, that some modified version of that could work.
Yeah.
I mean, tastes and styles change.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think he can be a top guy. Aleister Black, I think, is just too small for Vince's taste to go with as the face of the company.
Especially the whole satanic thing. That's normally not what you deem like doing Make-A-Wish.
Well, Undertaker.
But I'm just picturing Aleister Black doing Make-A-Wish. But Undertaker, when Undertaker was real face, American Badass, that shift happened when he was really mainstream.
Yeah, realistically, it's got to be someone with some size. Because that's what Vince ultimately sees as a top guy. Drew McIntyre, I don't see it. I just don't think he has that promo ability and charisma. Yeah, I see him being a top guy, but not the guy. I mean, you know, when people complain about Roman, it's not like they have a ton of other options.
They really don't, especially under like 32 years old. That's true.
Yeah, as far as young guys.
That's like the best way to put it, Raj. Like, well, they don't have a lot of other options. That's like, can you imagine like proposing to your wife and be like, well, you don't have a lot of other options. You know, so come on.
But Roman, you know, he's really good in the ring. No matter what people say, he's really good in the ring. And he's got the look. He stands out. His promo ability isn't the best, but it's better than a lot of guys.
You know, there's two guys that actually come to mind. I think they're both like 30, maybe 29, 30 years old. Elias and Big Cass. Obviously, Big Cass because of the size, and you saw a pretty big push with him. It didn't really connect because I don't think people were ready for Enzo and Cass to break up. And then when you saw Cass's horrible music and horrible trunks. But when he comes back, I think he's going to be somebody that's interesting. And Elias can use this gimmick for a while. He's very entertaining. People still are interested in seeing him. This gimmick won't make him the face of WWE, but his size, I think his ability in the ring and the way he can connect with fans, I think he has the potential to be somebody that WWE leans on. Maybe not the face of the company, but somebody that they can really rely on for main events in 2019, 2020.
Yeah. You know, people are mentioning Adam Cole and Kenny Omega. Again, the size thing, and that's not me talking. That's what you see WWE gravitating to, and I just don't think they have that.
Mojo's 31, Aiden English is 30. With Mojo,
I don't see either of those guys.
Remember, there was the chatter. That was the rumor for a long time with Mojo. Like, oh, they think he's the next Cena.
No. Yeah.
I sure as hell hope not.
Yeah. Aiden would need to be seriously repackaged.
Mojo would have to just. Mojo has something where if he can get rid of the annoying, his personality.
He's got that goofy charisma.
Where it doesn't come off as a star. It comes across as just annoying, and you don't want to watch it. This is a really hard question. As far as the actual, like a Cena, like the guy, I don't see anyone in all of wrestling. Maybe, how old is Eli Drake? Let's take a look.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Here we go. Tyler Breeze is 29 years old.
Oh wait.
Wow, he's 29.
But Tyler,
Eli Drake is 35. Dang.
Tyler's got a great look. He's very charismatic. Again, he would need some serious repackaging.
Again, the size thing. He's a smaller dude, and I just don't. He doesn't have that tough guy. He doesn't sound like a tough guy. Vince likes like alpha male. There are some exceptions, like Shawn. Even when Shawn Michaels became the face of the, but when he became the face of the company, he wasn't a flashy pretty boy. He had grown the facial hair and was doing the DX stuff. And
when I was watching Wrestling with Shadows, every time I see the footage of Shawn, it's just like, how did this get over? How is this the gimmick? How was everyone not? Everyone talks about Goldust being so provocative and grabbing his time. I'm like, how was Shawn not getting that? At the time.
Oh, Shawn! Shawn pushed DX. They pushed the when it was Shawn, Triple H in China. They really pushed the envelope there.
Oh, definitely. Which stuff we talked about this before, but outside of the clips they show on Monday Night Wars, if you go back and watch those actual episodes, a lot of that humor is really not aged well.
People are saying in the chat, Big E. I could see Big E being a star. I don't see him being the face though. He's 31. He's 31. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. Lars Sullivan. I could see him being a big star again. I just don't see it as the face of the company.
Not a face of the company. Yeah, I think Reigns is the face of the company for a while. Then somebody that we don't know about ends up coming, making a fast track to the main roster, and then everybody complains, "Oh, this is the guy they want as the face," and then everybody hates him, and because we've seen him multiple times. Yeah, I think all these guys that we're throwing out names like Big E, like Lars Sullivan. They have potential to be really impactful, but I don't see them as the face of WWE. Yeah. It's hard for me to see that.
Yeah, someone's saying Rusev. I think Rusev could be a huge star, but same thing. I don't think. I think he's great, but not face. Yeah. So the Miz is out for a while.
Yeah.
We should ask Matt Morgan that too on Monday and see what he says. But yeah, so the Miz is filming the Marine. Becky Lynch apparently is too. So that's why he dropped the title to Roman Reigns on Raw this past Monday night. So he's not going to be around for probably the next month.
Yeah. Which is funny that they could shoot a Marine movie in a month. I mean, compared to a typical production cycle.
Yeah. Well, you got to think probably no Miztourage on TV either. Yeah. The Miz, that's one where it does hurt the product because he adds a lot on the show. Like he's really entertaining.
Well, especially for a 3-hour and 10-minute show each Monday night, you can, I mean, even though you have Miz TV and like, oh, okay, here we go, Miz TV again. But it's, I mean, 10 or 15 minutes of your segment filled up instead of seeing maybe the second cruiserweight segment of the night or seeing a squash match or a Titus O'Neil storyline or feud. I'm going to miss the Miz for the time he's gone, but I think it's going to be a good thing because when he comes back, I think that's a really good opportunity if they really want to push him back up to the main level. Maybe not against Brock Lesnar, but back up to Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, guys like that they've had him at. He's going to come back fresh. He's going to have the Miztourage with them, and it's just you're going to miss the Miz, especially for a long 3-hour show for if he's gone for 4 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Marine 6, man. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know where they're going to take this franchise.
How do you think it ends? That's what I'm wondering.
In part 5, he was a security guard now, or like an EMT or something.
Oh,
I don't know. Yeah, he's an EMT because that's right. Because the Maurice dies in like the first 5 minutes of the Marine 5.
And the Miztourage was in the Marine 5, weren't they?
Yeah, and they got killed, so they're not coming back for part 6.
Damn, they could have done something with them. Maybe they could be zombies. Have a post-apocalyptic Marine movie.
I'm surprised. Actually, that would actually be pretty sweet. Oh man, but yeah, no, with the Miz gone, there's going to be a void. But maybe now we'll see with Paige back. Maybe we'll see a little more with the women's division, which is still small. I don't know if you guys see this online. I forget her name, but she does these Raw and SmackDown breakdowns. I follow her on Twitter, and she does like infographics. And it's still something like the women's division is getting like maybe 12% of TV time each week, if that. So. That's one area where they could easily increase the screen time with the Miz gone.
Yeah, or something like giving Elias more of a storyline or a feud to work with, or giving Matt Hardy something. I mean, that feud's interesting. It's not really the best feud ever, but if you give those guys more time, I think people would be okay with that too.
You do something with Matt. He's being wasted, and with the lack of depth overall in the company, I feel like just utilize him. He doesn't have to be broken, but he's reinvented himself in the past and in ROH when he was doing that rich prick gimmick and
Big Money Matt.
Yeah, Big Money Matt. So I'd like to see them tap into that creativity of his a little bit.
Yeah, we shall see. So Marine 6 coming direct to digital, probably not even DVD by the time it comes out. They're just like, we'll put it on iTunes.
Yeah.
Although
real quick, Hideo Itami, they announced
205
Live. So, yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see if Hideo Itami can do anything to move the needle for them. I think the only guy that you thought could move the needle was Enzo Amore. And what was Enzo Amore? He was all character, very little wrestling, because they have a ton of good wrestlers on that show. We know that. From the Tony Neses to the Cedric Alexanders and all the way down to the Rich Swans and TJP and all those guys. I like Hideo Itami, but he was never my favorite in NXT because, again, he is not a guy who connects with the crowd more than just in the ring, and they already have a lot of those guys. I think he becomes Cruiserweight champion. Probably he's the guy that takes the title off of Enzo. He's going to help it. He's definitely going to help Monday Night Raw if they continue to spotlight the Cruiserweights there as they've been doing. He has a name. He has a following. His run in NXT just wasn't what anybody expected, and that, I think, overall hurt his stock for WWE.
Yeah, I think 205 Live is just it's career purgatory. At least, Enzo benefited. I don't know if he benefited. At least he's not getting destroyed every week on TV. He wins here and there now. Yeah. But someone's saying Rockstar Spud, he's on his way. He's right. Someone, that could be a character, but nothing really.
I think Rockstar Spud. Yeah, I think he could be very entertaining for the Cruiserweight division. He could be a guy that really pushes Enzo Amore to some new creative heights. I really liked him in TNA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, props to Enzo on this, that they essentially gave him 205 Live, and made him the star of the show, and I think it has reinvigorated it. To more people are talking. I mean, before he came there, it was really
nothing.
Yeah, it was nothing. I mean, even with Neville, because I think after Aries left, Neville was just kind of, what did he have to do? Face off against TJ Perkins every week. I mean, or pardon me, TJP. I mean,
I think Neville should be on the main roster when he comes back on SmackDown.
I think so too. Give him 210 pounds and let him, work in the mid card. I think he'd be a great guy to potentially become Intercontinental Champion. I think he has the talent for it. I think his heel characteristics and the way that they booked his heel being so dominant for so long, which is really why I hated how he dropped the title. After just completely mowing through everybody and then dropping the title to Kalisto a week and a half or 2 weeks or whatever it was before SummerSlam.
Yeah,
it was just a horrible booking decision because you've basically buried every single cruiserweight, not buried, but you basically have, I guess I'm going to use that term, buried every other cruiserweight except Neville from him winning, but he was the only guy that deserved it. Every other guy was just okay. They were great in the ring, but their characters and their connection with the crowd were just okay.
Yeah. I mean, if anything is proven time and time again, character is more important ultimately.
Yeah.
I mean, you see Braun. Braun's not great in the ring by any means. He's probably the most over guy right now.
Because what
And
he
his
does, he
promos
does very
suck.
well. Well, but what's his promo? He just comes like on grr, you know.
Right, he growls.
Like, oh, they get it. They love him. You know, and remember, Raj, I mean, the average WWE fan has a problem, such a problem making it to their car without dropping their pizza.
Pizza droppers.
They're simple folk.
Did you see any the pizza dropping insurance
there
commercial
last-
during
it was
SmackDown?
there.
Absolutely, yeah. There's all of them all over.
And I went on the
$6.99.
website because I thought for a second, I was like, maybe this is Domino's being clever. Maybe this is like sort of a lampshade thing, right? But no, on the website, it's terms and conditions. Your pizza must be returned in its original packaging and uneaten. You cannot eat the dropped pizza.
That's the fine print at the bottom too. Paused it.
I like that they have to put that in there.
Because WWE fans
Like
would
one
think,
slice left.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop my pizza, bring it back. They're gonna have to give me another one. Just like, oh God, this is where we're at, folks. This is what Domino's thinks.
2017. The
Yeah.
year of pizza insurance.
Man, it sees that commercial. And it's like, I drop my pizza all the time, and Papa John's a Pizza Hut tell me to step. But man, Domino's has my back. Oh,
That'd be funny if they charge for it. Like what a scam that would be. It's like a $1 for pizza insurance.
And $1 extra for pizza insurance. It's weird too, because I feel like, especially with what we do in this podcast and the internet wrestling community, I feel like fans are smarter about the business and just come from all different demographics. And when I see something like that,
Well, I think this is on everywhere. It's not just wrestling.
Oh, it is. I know. But the fact that, like, we talked about this at the end of the podcast the other night, but when you see what they advertise on WWE, it's just like the lowest common denominator stuff, which is weird to me given how diverse wrestling fandom is now.
Oh yeah, they don't get enough credit.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So anything else we should cover before we take this home here?
No, I think that about covers it.
Cool. So Josh, where can people find your stuff online?
Yeah, so I'm at Josh Isenberg 4 on Twitter and all over Wrestling Inc. Doing some videos coming up, and we're going to be doing some really exciting videos released pretty much once a week for some top 5 lists, along with some other things that are coming in the future. So it's definitely exciting.
Cool, man. Raj, what should people look for this week with the holiday?
Oh man, there's tons of this week. It's Thanksgiving, so it slows down usually a bit, and then of course, I think a couple years ago that was when CM Punk was on Colt Cabana's podcast that dropped over Thanksgiving weekend, so it ends up being a busy weekend. But yeah, so this weekend's it's going to be a little slower. We're going to put up some interview highlights that have been around for a bit, but we got new interviews with Terry Funk, Al Snow, Gangrel that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. Jack Swagger, there's going to be more from my interview with him. Check out the article with Swagger from earlier this week if you haven't. He talks a lot about WWE pay, how much it fluctuated when he was getting his push to when he wasn't, network pay, stuff like that. And yeah, so tons of stuff. And yeah, so keep checking it out.
Cool, everyone. Well, we'll be back here Monday night to talk about Monday Night Raw. And until next time, folks, have a great Thanksgiving. I'm Glenn Rubenstein. We'll see you back here on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Take care.